Today I'm riding the brand new Giant Defy Advanced Pro. Actually been riding for the last 2 weeks. So today I want to share my first riding impressions and how it compares to other bikes in the endurance bike category. And riding this bike for the last few weeks has prompted a question. Why on earth are so many of us riding race bikes when we don't actually race? Now, endurance bikes like this one often get labelled unfairly as being slow, lazy, heavy, and for old people. But this bike is definitely not slow. In fact, it's fast, lightweight, agile, a lot of fun to ride. And I'm not that old, not yet anyway. So maybe it's a bike more of us should actually be riding. Let me just remind you of the bike I'm actually riding in case you missed my first look video on this last year. I'll put a link to that down below and up above in that card floating above my head. So this is a mid to upper end model in the company's range, the Defy Advanced Pro Zero. But it's worth remembering that the Defy range starts from a much more affordable £2,300 here in the UK. So there is a Defy range to suit most budgets, I think, depending on what spec you go for. This one is well equipped with Shimano's Ultegra Di2 group sets, carbon wheels, handlebar and seat post, and arguably with a weight of 7.5 kilos on my scales, you don't really need any more. Yes, that SL model is half a kilo lighter and has some very fancy wheels on it, but so far, based on riding a bike for the last 2 weeks, I don't really feel much of a shortfall in performance compared to that bike that costs twice the price of this one here. And really shows that those 10, 11, 12,000 pound bikes don't really offer much more performance, and it is very incremental improvements there if you want them. But if you don't need them, a mid-range bike offers arguably probably all the performance most of us really need. The only change I've made to the bike since it arrived is to fit a rear light, saddlebag, computer, and these things, mud guards. Yes, that's right. These, in case you're wondering, are Giant's own mud guards, and yes, they were a complete to fit. Took me ages, but once they're on, they are just fine. No rattling, no squeaks, all good. But the only issue, they're not very long at all. So I have some mud flaps on order to give me a bit more protection, especially from the front one, stopping the spray going onto my shoes when I'm riding through puddles. I've tested and reviewed many endurance bikes over the years, and they are immensely popular, but I've never actually owned one. Maybe this is a bike to tempt me away from my trusty and much loved TCR. So the reason I say that is I'm really liking the way the bike rides. The smoothness, the comfort, the sporty handling, all the kit and equipment on it. So the main reason endurance bikes have been so popular is the comfort they offer over a race bike. And there are two aspects of that comfort. There's a smoother ride from bigger tyres and other features, which on this bike means a carbon handlebar and seat post with a special profile and layup to give more vibration damping. And then the geometry in terms of fit and your position on the bike. I'm talking about a higher stack and a shorter reach. So you're a bit more upright and not stretched and aero as a race bike. And that works really well if you're not racing, you're riding sportives, you're riding long distances, just riding for fun and pleasure, and you want a bit more comfort. But this new Defy has a geometry that's been tweaked to make it closer to a race bike. Still more relaxed than a race bike, still has a higher stack and a shorter reach. The main changes over a race bike were the head angle, a seat tube angle, and other measurements like the wheelbase as well. But it's not as high at the front as a Special Roubaix and a Canyon Endurace. And that does give a sportier character. It's a bit more low down like a race bike. And those changes just make it a very fast bike to ride. It's definitely no slouch, it's definitely not a slow endurance bike. I'll be riding the Tarmac SL8 at the same time, and that is a very fast bike indeed, and definitely faster than a Defy, but not by much at all. In fact, if you want to see a comparison of these two bikes, let me know by leaving a comment down below. It still indulges my desire and occasional appetite to ride fast, but it gives me more comfort than a race bike and a more upright position that doesn't do my bad back in. So I'm clearly impressed with the way this bike rides, but how does it compare with other endurance bikes in this category, in which you might consider if you're in the market for such a bike? Well, hopefully I've ridden most of the bike, so I can make some comparison notes right now. The Specialized Roubaix and the Canyon Endurace both offer great performance and comfort. I still think the Specialized Roubaix is the smoothest, comfiest option if that's the top of your list, the one thing you want the most from your endurance bike. More comfort in the saddle and through the handlebars, and space for even bigger tyres as well. But what both the Specialized Roubaix and the Canyon Endurace have compared to this one is a much higher stack, so the handlebars are much higher. And that's why the Defy feels sportier and racier than the Roubaix, and the Endurace is much lower at the front, but still thankfully not as low as a race bike. The Canyon's very clever split seat post gives that bike the edge in seated comfort, but I'm not really a fan of a one-piece handlebar on an endurance bike, and one is too stiff for a bike like that. The Trek Domani is another option as well, and the ISOSpeed decoupler gives that bike incredible comfort in the saddle, and we have space for big tyres as well, and a down-tube storage hatch is a really smart idea. But I've always found the Trek platform to be too heavy, and a bike at 7.5 kilos is definitely going to help you on the climbs and mountains. The Cannondale Synapse is another option, and if you disregard the Smart Sense, which many people aren't a fan of, that bike gives similar performance, speed, stiffness and comfort as well, but sadly there isn't a high-end or mid-range option without that Smart Sense baked into it from the shop. So trying to recommend one single endurance bike when they are all so slightly different is very tricky. If comfort is everything you want from a bike like this, then a Specialized Roubaix is hard to ignore. It's such a smooth operator. But if you want a bike that's closer to a race bike and not as high at the front as the Roubaix and the Endurace, gives that sporty, sprightly performance, but has more comfort than a race bike, and space of wide tyres and takes mud guards, and offers good value for money as well, then Defy is definitely worth considering. And I think if you are somebody who has been riding a race bike for years and maybe now realising it's not the right bike for them, as I might be as well, this could be the right endurance bike to move you away from a race bike. And I also like the fact it's not trying to be a gravel bike, it's a road bike first and foremost. Yes, there is space for a 38mm wide tyre, but for me they're too narrow for gravel. I'd rather keep it as a pure road bike with some mud guards for riding through the winter and doing summer sportives, and have a dedicated gravel bike. But you can put some gravel tyres on if you want. It worked on a Specialized Roubaix, but I think that tyre clearance allows you to fit a wide tyre, like a nice 38 slick tyre or 35 slick tyre. Plenty of good options on the market these days. If we're talking about the gearing as well, the other big departure from race bikes are wider range gears. So thankfully we have, I say thankfully because I'm not very fit right now, so I need all the help I can get, short of putting a motor on the bike of course. So we have a compact chain set up front, 50-34, and the cassette is a whopping 11-34. How times have changed. The old days of 11-25 and maybe 11-28 if you're lucky are long behind us, thankfully. And in case you're wondering, this is a size ML and I'm 181 centimeters tall. We have a 100mm stem, so 10mm shorter than the one on my TCR. 42 centimeter handlebar, which I actually like. I like the shape of the handlebar. I don't mind the width at all. It's not a race bike, I'm not trying to be as aero as possible. I like the extra width of a wider handlebar. Giant's own saddle as well, one of those short nose, stubby nose saddles that are very popular and indeed very comfy as well. 172.5mm cranks and 32mm wide tyres, which are set up tubeless as well, running just 50 psi in knees for loads of comfort on my rough roads. And what do we think of the looks? Well, personally, I think it looks fantastic. I dare you to disagree with me. Leave a comment down below if you do. Now, Giant usually, unfairly I think these days, get a bad rep for the way the bikes look in the paint jobs and designs. But I think the bike looks pretty cool. We have a lovely colour that fades along the top tube and a two-tone stripe down the rear stays. Pared back graphics, nice matching components. It's a really sleek, contemporary, modern looking bike. I like the proportions of the frame as well, the rear stays, the head tube. It's a really elegant looking bike, at least to my eyes. But of course, you can disagree, and I'm sure you will, down in the comment section below. Anyway, those are my first impressions on the brand new Giant Defy Advanced Pro disc. Full review coming in the next few weeks. I want to make sure I've got enough miles on the bike to really give it a full and thorough verdict. But first impressions, as you probably can tell from the last few minutes of the video, are very good indeed. So let me know what you think of the bike and endurance bikes in general by leaving a comment down below. And if you want to see a roundup of the best endurance bikes on the market right now, watch the video up beside me there on the screen. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this on a regular basis. Anyway, that's all for today on the ride home. I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you so much for watching.